What's going on, movie fans? My name is Michael Weer. I like talking about movies, and we've officially made it through the month of August 2024. And since August has come to a close, it's time for me to talk about all the brand new movie releases that I had a chance to see and then rank them from worst to best. Now, just like previous videos, this isn't just about my list, it's about your list as well, and I would love to know how you rank the month of August 2024. So if you've seen multiple movies in the month of August, well, go ahead and throw those in the comment section down below. Let me know what you saw and how you would rank them from worst to best, and we'll see how our lists compare. Of course, our lists are probably not going to match up, but that's totally fine because all lists are different, and if they weren't, it would just be kind of weird. But on that note, August was a better month, for me at least. I have a couple of dumpster fire movies that we will talk about, but for the most part, August was a fun month, and I'm excited to give you guys this list. But if this is the first time you found my channel, I would love for you to check out the rest of the content on my channel and consider hitting that subscribe button. That way, when I drop new content, well, you'll be notified when it hits YouTube. Now, I've done YouTube shorts for every movie on this list where I just give you a quick reaction after I see the film, and I've done full movie reviews for 10 of the 11 films we're about to talk about, and all of those videos are on my YouTube channel now. With all that said, let's get into ranking August of 2024 from worst to best. Coming in at number 11, we have Borderlands, and Borderlands is the definition of a movie that is actually just a dumpster fire in a theater. It was god-awful. There is not one redeemable quality from Borderlands, and I've seen some people say, oh, well, you know, some of the visuals didn't work for me either, because we'll start at the visuals. That's fine, because that's what I tend to see people talking about. They're like, oh yeah, the video game to the visuals in the movie, it all kind of works for me. Well, I'm not a video game player, so I haven't played the Borderlands games, and the visuals for me just felt like cheap CGI. Like when they were on these big sets, it just looked like a big green screen in the background. So that's the first thing I'm going to say negatively about Borderlands, because that's where people tend to go. But now I'm going to get into the list of things that I really didn't like about Borderlands, and we're going to start at the fact that this movie wasn't funny at all. This movie had zero comedy in it, although it cast Kevin Hart and Jack Black, two very, very funny people that should be able to just riff off of each other and have a good time in this film. But instead, you cast Kevin Hart as the guy who doesn't make jokes, the guy who's serious all the time. And I don't know why you do that, but okay, fine. You know what? You want him to be serious? You got Jack Black. Well, that's a funny dude. What are you going to do with him? Oh, he's going to make poop jokes as a robot. That's what you're going to do with Jack Black in this film? There's no comedy to be had. And as a movie that's setting itself up as the Guardians of the Galaxy adjacent film, this is all they could give us? A tree that can only say 3 words in Guardians of the Galaxy was funnier in one moment of that film where he just smiled than Claptrap, Jack Black's character in this film, was in the entire film. I didn't laugh one time, my entire theater didn't laugh, and there were a lot of little kids in my theater, and I was like, oh, okay, this must be the demographic they're going for. None of the little kids in my theater laughed at the Claptrap jokes as well, so I don't know who those jokes were supposed to be for, but none of them landed. Then we get into the fact that this movie was directed by Eli Roth, and then people say, well, he didn't direct the whole thing. I'm sorry, he's the build director. This is my least favorite movie by him. And then you look at the cast of this film. You have Cate Blanchett, you have Jamie Lee Curtis, and you're like, all right, well, I'll get something out of them, right? No, you won't. They're both awful in this movie as well. So I don't know who this movie was meant for. Maybe it was meant for hardcore gamers, although I haven't seen a lot of gamers saying that it really worked for them either. And it didn't work for the average going movie audience like myself. Like, okay, I watched this film, I should want to go pick up the game and play it. But no, that didn't happen at all. If anything, when I see Borderlands on the shelf, I'm going to leave it there and move past it because that's how bad this film was. I've ranted on this thing long enough. Let's get into my number 10 pick. At number 10 is a movie I wish I would have had a better time with. It pains me to put it at number 10. It is M. Night Shyamalan's Trap. And this is a film where outside of Josh Hartnett's performance and outside of the fact that I liked M. Night sort of boosting his daughter through this movie, outside of those two things, I didn't get much enjoyment out of this movie. And then there's just coincidence after coincidence after coincidence during the whole arena portion of this movie where you've got Josh Hartnett as the butcher trying to get out of this arena that's surrounded by cops. At one point, he finds out through a different character that the only place not being guarded is backstage. And they're like, nobody gets back here. And then he just happens to bump into M. Night Shyamalan, who is playing a character related to the pop star. And he gives him a BS story. And he's like, all right, tell you what, we're going to get you and your daughter backstage. And it's like, oh, coincidence that that worked out. And then you get towards the end of this movie, once the arena portion of this movie is done, and it's just nonsense fake ending after nonsense fake ending over and over and over with more coincidence. And that doesn't even get into the fact that you've got this FBI profiler who's this old lady who they allow into the house at the same time as all the SWAT members toward the end of this film to try and catch it. It makes no sense at all. M. Night came out saying, this was one of the fastest scripts I've ever written. And I'm like, yeah, I could see that completely. I don't even think when you went into production that you had this script finalized, because what was that ending all about? What a mess of a movie. At number 9, we have a film that actually released in March of this year, but I didn't have a chance to see it until August, and so that's why it's on this list, and it is Love Lies Bleeding. Now, this is a movie that got me interested because it's an A24 romance film, and of course, I've seen A24 horror films, I've seen an A24 action movie with Civil War this year, so I was interested in checking out an A24 love story, and it basically stars Kristen Stewart as this girl who runs a gym, and this other girl comes in one day to work out at that gym, and they fall in love. But there's more to it than just the love story portion. Kristen Stewart's character's dad in this film is a drug runner, gun runner, and he's not a good person at all. And so there's a little bit of family conflict. So while you've got this love story going on, there's this family conflict going on. And so they're both having this issue with each other. And they both, of course, in this movie will collide. As far as my positives for this film go, I really liked the gym culture that they kind of played into in this movie. You know, it had that 80s feel to it where it was like this gritty gym culture, everybody shooting up. And as somebody who likes to go to the gym myself, it's just cool to see gym culture in a film. So that was kind of fun. But on the negative side of things, I didn't like Kristen Stewart's acting in this film. I felt like she was very one note, and she kind of brought the story down when she was involved. And since she's the main star of this movie, that was a lot of this film. And then A24 has to always be a little weird. And so towards the end of this movie, they do some really weird things with the camera. They show one of the characters as really big, sort of defeating this bad person that was in their life, and I didn't like that. I got the symbolism, but I didn't like that. It didn't have to get that weird at the end. Like, it was a pretty straightforward story. You didn't have to get weird with it, but it's A24. A24 is going to get weird, so that's kind of where this movie landed. So it wasn't the worst I saw this year. I'd say I'm not mad that I watched it like the previous 2 movies on this list. It's just a movie I'll probably not go back to. But on that note, from here on out, these were movies that I watched and I had a good enough time with. At number 8, we have The Crow. The Crow, of course, is the remake of the 1994 classic film of the same name, The Crow, starring Brandon Lee. This film starred Bill Skarsgård as the Crow, and when I heard about this movie originally, I got excited, but that was about 10 years ago. It's gone through development hell to get to the big screen. At one point, this movie even had Jason Momoa cast as the character of the Crow, but it made its way to Bill Skarsgård. It finally hit the screen, and I think there's enough new about this film to give me an enjoyable time in the theater, and much like Love Lies Bleeding, this is a film that I'm glad I saw it once, probably won't go back to it too much more. I had an enjoyable enough time with the action in this movie. I liked the new setup of this film versus the old film. Like, they didn't just copy paste the old film. This film felt like it was trying to do its own thing, and sometimes its own thing didn't work. There were some pacing issues with this film. There were some moments in this movie where he's going back to this land of the crows, is the best way I can put it, and those scenes started to get a little bit repetitive, and so I could see people not liking this film. I could also see people really enjoying this film. I'm somewhere happily in the middle where I saw it, I would watch it again, but it wouldn't be something I'd rush to see another time. At number 7, we have the newest Blumhouse horror film to hit theaters, and that would be Afraid. And Afraid, of course, focuses on AI horror. AI trying to take over a family's life. It starts as this thing that's like building lists of things to do for the kids, helping the mom with a paper, helping the dad out with some things. It's doing things for everybody in the family. And then eventually the AI is like, you know what? I could run your lives better. It's not even that I could help your lives, I could run it better. And so where this movie really could have gone into something kind of fresh and unique in the AI genre, it sort of played it safe. Not the worst Blumhouse film I've seen this year, but nowhere near the best horror film I've seen this year. Another issue I have with this film is it didn't really feel scary, and I know I'm an adult, I shouldn't get scared at movies, but ultimately this movie didn't scare me in any way. There was nothing eerie about this movie. There was no point in this movie where I was like, okay, I get why this is in the horror genre. Like, I could see maybe this being in the sci-fi genre, but to call it a horror film didn't really feel like that. So Afraid is another movie, much like The Crow, much like Love Lies Bleeding. I watched them once. I've seen it. Would I watch it again? Maybe, but I wouldn't rush to see it. At number 6, we have Jackpot, and Jackpot stars John Cena and Awkwafina, and this was a movie I had a good enough time with. This movie, I actually laughed at quite a bit of Awkwafina and John Cena going back and forth with each other. I liked the action in this film as well. It was never too far over the top where it was unbelievable, and I liked the action scenes that John Cena got to sort of show his physical presence on the screen while also having a good time with this movie. The plot itself was kind of fun. It's about a jackpot winner in California, but California passed a law that if you win the jackpot, people have 24 hours to kill you, and if they're able to kill you, they get your jackpot winnings. You see that sort of play out at the beginning of the film, and you're like, okay, here we go. And of course, Awkwafina accidentally wins the jackpot. John Cena comes in as a security guard to defend her, and so they have to go through the next 24 hours together. John Cena trying to defend her from people that he thought were his friends too. So there's some good level of drama in this movie between John Cena and someone he thought was a friend. There's some good level of humor in this between Awkwafina and John Cena, and there's a good bit of action. Overall, again, like the last couple movies, I saw it once, I enjoyed it enough, I would watch it again. And that's all I can say about it. Now we get into my top 5, and from here on out, these are movies that I think were excellent. These are movies that are going to be toward the top of my list at the end of the year for the entire year. I thought some of these movies had something really good to say. Others were just entertaining as hell, and I'm excited to talk to you about them. So at number 5, we have Blink Twice. And Blink Twice stars Channing Tatum as a billionaire that has recently had something happen where he had to put out an apology video. They never really get into what he had to apologize for, but the movie opens with a YouTube apology video from him apologizing for what he's done, saying he's going to take some time to go back to his island and reset. He's going to regroup with his crew. And you watch it through the lens of this girl who is watching his video, who's completely infatuated with him. And as fate would have it, she and her best friend are going to be waitresses at an event that he is going to be at that night. And so when they get there, they switch into some fancy clothes, try to blend in with the rich people, and one thing leads to another, and they both get an invite to his private island. And they go out there, and they are having a great time. There's a couple of guys, there's Channing Tatum, there's a couple girls, they're all having a great time. They are having the best time, or at least for what they can remember, because that is where this movie starts to get a little deadly, because they can't remember everything that's going on. And as it turns out, they're being drugged throughout this movie and not remembering what's happening to them. And there's some really nasty abuse and gaslighting going on from Channing Tatum's character and the guys on that island towards the girls. What I really appreciated about this film is while it does deal with some dark subject matter, it finds a way to not shove that subject matter down your throat. It finds a way to make it entertaining to a point where you didn't feel like you were being preached at the whole movie. Yes, is gaslighting an issue? It is. Is abuse of women an issue? It is. But you end up telling a story and crafting a story that is given to the viewer as entertainment versus just preaching at us, and I really appreciated that about this film, because there was a good message in this film. There was at least a message of warning in this film, and I thought that that was necessary. But that's not the only thing I liked about this film. I really liked the acting from everyone involved. I thought everybody was locked into their characters in this movie and just had an interesting storyline. You know, this billionaire who has an island, these girls that are there, them trying to figure out what's going on, the realization that hits them when they realize what's been happening to them, and then them trying to get away from this island or take some vengeance on the people that have been doing this to them on the island. So there's a good bit there. Now, the reason this is at number 5 and it isn't closer to my favorites of this month is because I think the end goes a little too far. They do something at the end of this film that is so beyond the realm of possibility, just based on the setup, that I didn't appreciate it. Like, okay, yes, are there drugs out there that could make people forget? There are. And so you could say those were the drugs being used. So there is a little bit of believability there. But when you get to the end of this film, there's just something going on where no matter what way you look at it, it's a fantasy scenario. There's no way this scenario could play out. Somebody from Channing Tatum's crew, somebody from the outside world would start asking questions, and this would fall apart completely. It wouldn't be able to just stand on its own. And that's the only thing that bothered me, because the rest of this felt pretty grounded. A good message about, hey, we got to watch out for abuse in women. We got to watch out for these rich and powerful men just taking advantage of people. All of that was a good message, but you get into the end of this movie and it's just like, you kind of went past the realm of believability there. At least that's how I felt. So this is at number 5, but honestly, I had a great time with this film, and it's one of the better ones of the month. At number 4, guys, we have the horror movie called Cuckoo, and when I saw it, I thought this is going to be movie of the month, and that's actually something I could say about the rest of the movies on this list as I saw them, because I was like, wow, how do I put together the top 4 of this month? Like, they're all great, they all have great endings to them, so what are we going to do with this? And at number 4, I just had to land on Cuckoo, but you put this movie against most of the other months of this year, much like the rest of this list going forward, and it would be at number 1. It just happened to be in a pretty stacked month when it came to the best of the month, in my opinion. But Cuckoo is a really fun movie. I thought Hunter Schafer was phenomenal in this film. She plays a girl who had to leave America because her mother had passed away. She has to go move to the German Alps with her dad and his family that he's got out there. And so there's a little bit of uneasiness right off the bat because of that. But then when she gets to the German Alps, it's this old rundown resort that is being repaired and remodeled, and her dad is the blueprints guy, and he works for Dan Stevens' character. And Dan Stevens' character's got something a lot more nefarious going on than just running a resort in the German Alps. There's some great character work by the people I already mentioned in this film. Overall, though, the sense of dread in this movie, the sense of being trapped in an area, even such a beautiful area like the German Alps, the cinematography in this movie was great. And so you got this beautiful setting. It's like, yeah, I'd love to be trapped there. But you get into what's going on, what's happening to the girls in this area. And you're like, all right, yeah, this is terrifying. And it's just very good horror storytelling throughout the film, the sense of dread throughout the film, the sense of being trapped throughout the film. And you get to the end of this movie and there's some pretty sick reveals that happen. I will say that this movie does do the one thing I don't like from horror/monster movies. It's when the monster is revealed, it just automatically takes any of the horror away from me. It did do that to me. Like, the sense of dread was still there. I was still at the edge of my seat toward the end of this movie between a shootout that happens with Dan Stevens' character. I really liked what was going on there, but there was a lot left unresolved in the end of this movie, and I wish they would have given me just a little bit more. But maybe that's a good thing. If I'm sitting there wanting more at the end of this film, maybe that's a good thing. I really enjoyed this one. It's at number 4 for August. At number 3, guys, we have the most recent movie I've reviewed on my channel, and that is Slingshot. And Slingshot stars Casey Affleck as a astronaut that is leaving Earth going to this new planet of Titan, and Titan is a place where we can get more resources. Now, that is a trope that's sort of been done over and over and over and over and over in space exploration movies. It's just something that we do. We're like, guys, we're eventually going to run out of fuel, so we're going to set this movie in the future where we're actually running out of fuel, and we're going to have to send people to other places around the galaxy to try to bring resources back. So that's a trope that's been done a lot, but outside of that, I thought this movie was very unique and handled very well for being a space exploration film while also being a very gripping love story. So in this movie, you have Casey Affleck's character of John, who is in hibernation for a lot of this film, and anytime he's in hibernation, you're seeing a flashback where basically he's dreaming about the time he spent with this girl on Earth named Zoe Morgan, and I really like what they did with their characters on the love story angle of this film. I think Casey Affleck can really sell a good love story, and I loved their acting that they had. But back on the spaceship, anytime he would wake up, you had people in this movie like Tomer Capone, who plays Frenchie from The Boys, and you also had Lawrence Fishburne being the captain of this ship, and they have very different personalities. You know, you have Lawrence Fishburne's captain, who's basically like, we are going to get this mission done, I will kill both of you to get this done, so we are going to get this mission done. And then on Tomer Capone's side, he plays a character named Nash, and when one little thing happens to the ship, he starts doubting the entire mission. And Casey Affleck feels like he's sort of caught in between these two characters, and the way he kind of is, because there's a twist to this movie that I didn't see coming. Actually, there's a double twist to this movie that I didn't see coming, and I really love that about this film. I think the ending of this movie is one of my favorite endings of the entire year. It is that damn good. I have recommended this to people so many times in the last couple of days now. A couple of them have actually gone to the theater to see it. They agree with me that they love that ending. They love the love story. There's just a lot to really enjoy about this film, and I highly recommend it to all of you. Check out Slingshot. At number 2, guys, we have a movie that came out of left field for me. It was not on my list of movies to check out in August of 24. Wasn't on my radar at all. Had a YouTube commenter who was like, hey, don't sleep on Strange Darling. So I went and checked out Strange Darling, and oh my God, one of the best movies this year. It is that damn good. You've got Kyle Gallner playing a character known as only the Demon, and you have Walla Fitzgerald playing a character known only as the Lady. And the movie is told to you in chapters, but not in order. So it'll start in chapter 4, and you'll see some crazy stuff going down, and you're like, holy shit, I hope she gets away. And then it'll jump to number 1, and you'll be like, oh, well, that kind of changes some things up. And then it'll jump to number 5, and you're like, ah, god damn it, he's crazy. And then it'll jump to number 2, and it's just this great mix of chapters that if it was told in a normal fashion, it would have been pretty straightforward and honestly maybe a little boring. People would have come out of the movie going, the first couple 40 minutes of the movie kind of took some time to get going. But because they opened it up on this crazy chase scene and then go back and then go forward and back throughout the entire film, I felt like the pacing was great in this film. I also thought that the acting from both Walla Fitzgerald and Kyle Gallner was phenomenal. I loved Strange Darling. I thought this is a kind of fresh horror that we need in horror films now, because the genre can get so stale with so much being thrown at it all the time. But you get a movie like Strange Darling, and it really mixes up the genre, gets you excited to tell your friends about a horror film. I had a great time with Strange Darling. Highly recommend you check this one out too. Which will lead me to the final movie in August of 2024, my favorite movie of the entire month, and it's going to be Alien Romulus. And here's the thing, again, you could take my top 3 and you could switch them around and all of them would make sense at the 1, 2, and 3 spot. I'm a sucker for space films, so Slingshot had to be in my top 3, but Alien has so much that I love about film, whether it's space in general, seeing space on the big screen, or just the alien lore. Alien and Aliens are movies that I saw when I was 12 with my dad, and they mean a lot to me, and so this movie had a little bit more to it than just, oh, another space adventure movie. I thought the visuals in space were phenomenal in this film. I still want to go back to the theater and see this in IMAX before it's gone from IMAX forever, so I do want to try and take time to see Alien Romulus in the theater again just for those visuals, but I also thought the alien carnage was glorious in this movie. You had Fede Alvarez coming in off of Evil Dead and off of Don't Breathe, coming into this movie, and I'm like, okay, what kind of carnage are we going to get? And we got some beautiful carnage in this film, whether it's a guy's arm melting from the acid dripping from an alien, or it's just an alien going after these people, or even the face huggers in this movie, which were absolutely terrifying. Like, we've seen face huggers in so many other movies, and at no point have I ever thought the face hugger was scarier than the alien until this film. And that in and of itself is quite impressive. I loved how they handled the face huggers in this movie. They also have this horror element to them that I can't even compare to the alien. Like, the alien itself is creepy, and it's a hunter, and it's waiting on them, and it's seeking them out, but the face huggers are just these monsters, these things chasing you down. They can get through little cracks and crevices, and they can sneak up on you at the same time. They even go into a little bit more detail on sort of how to get around face huggers, which I thought was pretty cool too. There was so much thought put into this film, including tying the franchise together, not just saying, oh yeah, this comes after Alien, before Aliens, you guys will figure it out. No, they tied in other films from the franchise, like Prometheus, like Covenant. They tied in other movies that made sense, and you're like, wow, overall now for this universe, Alien Romulus really helps to tie this thing together. Overall, I had a fantastic time watching Alien Romulus in the theater. It is my #1 movie for August of 2024. I would highly recommend at least my top 5 from this list, but you should check out Alien Romulus while it's still in theaters if you get the chance. With all that said though, guys, those are my August movies ranked from worst to best. I hope you had a chance to check these movies out. And if you did get a chance to check these movies out, let me know in the comment section down below what some of your favorites were. Again, if you've got a ranked list, I'd love to see what that is as well. And finally, guys, if you like this video and you want to check out more of the content on my channel, don't forget to hit that like button because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. All right, guys, we got to the end of my August 2024 ranked videos from worst to best. Love making these videos. I love putting them in order, and then I get to take these movies now, put them in order for the year, decide where I want to rank them from there. I have a great time making ranked videos, and I hope you guys enjoy watching them. On that note, if you guys want to check out any of the other content on my channel, well, I've got all of my best and worst from 2024 right there, and I've got all of my 2024 movie reviews right there.